Awesome. Well, it's nice to see all of you virtually. I'm going to share got a little keynote. So I'm going to get that going. But please jump in, Dave, if something goes wrong. So basically, to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm Paul Andersen. I was a science teacher for 20 years in Montana. And then for the last 6 years, I've been a consultant. And so I've been working with schools as they implement NGSS. And so you might know me from Bozeman Science. I've made about 600 videos, and they just kind of cover a lot of different areas of science. I love teaching, but what I realized is that direct instruction is not super effective way to teach science. Kids have to be in the position of a scientist and be making sense. And so over the last 6 years, I've been working on a different website, and I'm going to share you that today. I still am making videos on Bozeman Science. I made a couple of videos on how to move your class online, and one for teachers or for parents at home, how they could start doing science at home. But I want to share with you a website called The Wonder of Science. And so all the work that I've been doing around inquiry and around three-dimensional learning and three-dimensional teaching is going on this new website. It's run by my wife and I, and we're missing out on NSTA, which is kind of a bummer. It's nice to see so many science teachers when you're there. Everything on the website is free, so it's all Creative Commons. We give everything away for free. I'm going to show you and walk through some inquiry cards. That'll be one thing that's there, and then this wheel. But we try to develop things when we work with teachers and then make sure all that's available to you. I wanted to show you the last slide of my presentation first. As I was thinking about what I want to spend this time on in 30 minutes, I wanted to get a takeaway that you could use tomorrow in your online classes. And so I came up with a number of ideas. These are some bit.lys for those, and so you could jot some of those down, or just know that when we get to the end, there are going to be links to everything that we have, including on The Wonder of Science. I'll link everything up there. And so my talk is on unlocking the power of three-dimensional instruction. And it's kind of, I don't want to fill you with a bunch of jargon. If you're not super familiar with the NGSS, the idea is that, and I'm going to use my little model here. The idea is that when you're trying to figure out science, the old school way of teaching science was, let's do all the explanation up first. And then at the end, students get to do a little bit of exploration. So we front load them with a lot of content. And then at the end, they get to do some lab. But even those labs a lot of the time are really cookbook. And so what we're hoping that teachers can start doing is just shifting that. So kids start to explore first, and then that explanation can come later. There's never going to be no place for direct instruction from teachers. It just shouldn't be the first thing. And so looking at this model right here, the idea is that we have the phenomena in the middle, and then you're essentially rotating it. And so you're maybe having kids ask questions about patterns, or then they're going to develop a model to see how the system works together. And so this would be, there's a video that shows you how to put this together on the website. It's the most stolen thing at all of my workshops. Every time I'm picking stuff up at the end, it's always missing. Teachers just take it with them. And so I think it's valuable. But when I'm thinking about today, I really wanted to focus on how do we do three-dimensional instruction in home, at the home setting when we're teaching online. How do we do it like I'm doing right now? And so I wanted to start with a phenomena that I discovered when I was working with some teachers. And we were writing on a whiteboard, and then somebody spilled some water on the whiteboard and the letters floated up. And so we were, oh no, and then, oh wow, that's really, really cool. And so as far as teaching through 3 dimensions, we would call this a phenomena. A phenomena is something that occurs, and what we're going to try to do is figure out exactly what's causing that. If you want to do this with home, or if you want to have your students do this at home, all you need is a glazed plate. So don't use one that is matte finish. Make sure it's glazed. Just some Expo dry erase markers. You write on there, you let it dry a little bit, and then as you pour the water, make sure you pour the water slowly from the side, and then some of the letters will lift off. You'll see differences depending on what the colors are. You can see that the blue is starting to lift off. And so if we were to start thinking about this on this wheel of inquiry, you start with a phenomena, and then you might have the kids just start asking questions, like asking questions about like what's causing it, obviously. Why am I seeing difference in patterns between the blue and the black? But what's great about this is it's a safe thing that you could do at home. kids could ask questions about it, but then do experiments on their own. They could add videos or at least give feedback on this. This seems like a real simple demonstration, but as you start to dig into it and start to investigate, you'll find that it's way more complex. So when I was doing this with some students, we started to see these rotation patterns, and we thought that they were thermal convection, so the heat was moving it, but it wasn't that. So there was some kind of chemistry going on. I think we were using a different solvent instead of water. And then all of a sudden, one of the letters just picked off and just started dancing around, and somebody screamed out, "It's alive!" And so I think this is what makes science amazing, and this is what makes science so fun, is that you never know what you're going to discover. But once you start to go down that pathway, you're opening up a door, which just leads to another door. And that's kind of what inquiry is. And so on the website, The Wonder of Science, I'm starting to curate a bunch of phenomena like this. They've got little descriptions, links to videos. And so they're things that you could use in your classroom. And I think safe ones like this are really simple ways to start doing kitchen chemistry, so that parents can get involved with this as well. Now, who should do it is something to think about. Should we all be doing phenomena like this? I really don't think so. So you should choose phenomena that are tied to the standards in which you're teaching. So a lot of schools I work with are using NGSS, but there are other standards out there in the States. Like I'm in Montana, and we kind of have a modified version of that. But this would be a really good phenomena for 5th grade, because they have a standard on modeling matter made of particles that are too small so we can't see it. And so if we look at a standard in the NGSS has these 3 dimensions. There's the blue on what kids are going to do, there's the orange on what they're going to learn, and then there's the green, and that's how they're going to think. And so they should be thinking about a sense of scale. So having your kids draw models of the particles, of the different dry erase markers, and what do they think is going on and why they're lifting off of that plate would be a really cool phenomena that they could investigate into. Now, what do you want to tell them? Don't tell them like Google the answer. Like a lot of teachers and a lot of students think just looking up to the answer on Google is going to be some kind of inquiry or some science. You're just looking up somebody else's science when you do that. And so it'd be a good phenomena for 5th grade. It'd be a good phenomena for a chemistry class. There's a standard on electric forces and bulk structures. And so this would be kids having to design an investigation. And so the one thing that I've found whenever I go to NSTA or whenever I look at resources or websites or anything, I think there's so many cool ideas out there, but a lot of the time they're not tied to specific standards. And so on The Wonder of Science, I've made the whole website so it's around the standards itself. And so as you're trying to come up with a phenomena, the first thing you should choose is, oh, what grade am I looking at? What standard am I looking at? And then the phenomena is listed there. Another thing that we know when it comes to teaching, but a lot of the time we just forget it, is that you shouldn't just start by starting with the instruction, you should start backward design. And so on the website, we have tons of performance assessments. These have been written by myself, written by other teachers across the country and across the world. And what we're trying to do is write specific performance assessments. And so on the website, these would be like 6 performance assessments that are aligned to this specific standard. Those are designed not as tests that teachers could use, however, some teachers might use them that way. It's so that teachers can get a better idea of what does a 3-dimensional assessment look like when students are not just having to recall information, but they have to do things. So in this case, they have to plan an investigation and do an investigation. You're never going to do this as like a test. This is going to be the investigation that you're doing. And that's a big shift in education throughout my whole career. We always knew that students should be kind of in the position of the scientist, but now we're saying like these are the steps that they should be in the position of the scientist. I put a lot of work this last year has been articulating all the things that I'm kind of mentioning and putting that on the website. And so I frame it around scientific inquiry, this idea of how do we understand the world and how do we make sense of the world? And so I make videos, and so I put together 6 or 7 videos that talk about what does scientific inquiry look like. There are these inquiry cards, and those are what these are. So they're inquiry cards on phenomena or how to ask questions. And then they have backs to the cards where they've got specific little rubrics and then icons that go with it, and just try to make it as understandable as I possibly can. So let me give you another example of a phenomena, because a lot of the ideas I've seen out there have a lot of been like things that we could do in the kitchen, but a lot of those are not necessarily what scientists do. And so right here, we've got a section of a stream in Wyoming. So this is a different phenomena. It'd be a good one for like a middle school life science phenomena. You could also do this in upper elementary. And so what we've got is, this is what the stream looked like on one day. And this is the same stream 13 years later. So this is it in 2004, and this is it in 2017. And you can see in the background, there's an arrow. So there's that tree in 2004. There's that tree in 2017. And so that's the phenomena that we're going to try to figure out. What's happened between those two times, because we can see way more vegetation when we look at 2017. Now you can see that I'm not telling you specifically where this is. I'm saying it's in Wyoming. If I tell you the exact study and all of that, like, it's easily Googleable. And so what we would try to do is figure out what's causing that. So what's causing that is a cross-cutting concept called cause and effect. A lot of the time, teachers are starting to engage in the practices. So we're engaging in the practices of asking questions. I see a lot of teachers developing models, engaging in argument. The ADI work and that argument-driven inquiry is really great stuff. But a lot of the time, we're not focusing on the third dimension, which is the cross-cutting concept. So when I did this with some middle school teachers in the Netherlands, we started with a little mini lesson on cause and effect in general. So how did dominoes, one domino cause another domino to fall and another domino to fall? So before we actually got to this phenomena of ecosystem change, we went and did a mini lesson on just how cause and effect works and how you can have one cause that leads to multiple other causes that eventually lead to an effect. And then when I want to have the kids investigate, I send them to a website. So this is one that I've made myself. It's bit.ly/riparian zone. So if I switch to that, so this is what it looks like. So essentially they're given the images from that area, giving them a map of where it is. This would be a food chain. Oh shoot. Sharing is paused. Bring your share window to the front. Okay, so I don't know if I lost you there. Uh-oh. I don't know if I'm still going, so I'm going to, let me look in the chat. You're back. Okay, we can see your screen again. Sorry about that. And so, so essentially, maybe I'll try not to switch out of Keynote. Essentially what's going on is I'm giving them all the data. I give them the food, the food web. I'm giving them the data on climate. I'm giving them data on other species in that area and what's happened to them over time. And so I'm putting them in the position of the scientist so they can hopefully figure out what's going on. This would be another phenomena. This is called the case of the disappearing forest. Let me see if I'm, let me make sure that I'm still going. Alrighty. I'll assume that I'm going. I'm getting a little flashing bit, but I hope that's working. This is called the case of the disappearing forest. And so this is a video. And so in this video, I just start with this as a phenomena. And so this is a cypress forest in a southern state. And so one day it was doing fairly well. And then all of a sudden it started to just disappear. And so this would be the phenomena that we start with, or that engaging phenomena to begin with. And so it's really important to have kids dig into that first step of inquiry, which is to identify what's the phenomena and then what's going on. If I should have defined phenomena a little bit ago. A phenomena is just something that happens in the natural world, but we don't necessarily know exactly what's going on. And so I start with this as the engaging first phenomena. You probably, if you're going to use this as a phenomena, you would want to strip out like where this is, where it comes from, and just show them this video and have them watch the video over and over. I've had kids, this would be a really good environmental science phenomena. I've had kids like watch this video over and over again for 20 minutes, just picking up new little bits of information that they see each time. They'll notice things that, like, it looks like it's raining all of a sudden, they'll notice, or that the species or the trees in the back aren't being affected. And what is that big orange thing in the front? And so it's a real thing, and your brain just kind of engages with that. After they've looked at this and they've come up with observations, then they start to formulate questions that they have. After they've formulated those questions, then we have them develop a model, which is what do they think is going on. So that is a picture of what's in your brain. And a lot of the time I'll use whiteboarding to figure out exactly how that works. And so they're showing what they think is going on. And then the next thing is going to be, well, let's give them the data. And so this would be another page that I've put together. This is bit.ly/caseforest. And so if you were to go there, what I'm going to have is, this is the area where it's found. These are, I'm just going to try not to shift back and forth to my web browser. These are different human interventions around this area. This is a Google Earth time lapse, so they can see what it looked like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and they can see that blend. We can look at soil types, earthquakes. We can look at exploration for fossil fuels in that area. What you'll notice is that I'm not telling you the answer of why that forest is floating. That's what true scientific inquiry is when you show them an engaging phenomena, but you don't tell them the answer. And the kids start thinking about what is causing that, or specifically what is going on. The last one to show you is a simulator that goes back a number of years. And so this is an idea that I came up with, this must be, I think, 8 years ago. And so we're going to shift right now from looking at a specific phenomena where their students are trying to figure something out, and we're shifting more towards a simulation. And I think it's important to note the difference between the two. A phenomena like this disappearing forest is a real thing that occurs. As we throw that around as far as terms go, what a phenomena can be is way more broad than a lot of teachers really know. A phenomena is something that occurs, so it can be like a forest disappearing, which is a phenomena that I would argue is pretty phenomenal. But it could just be a demo that you've done forever, those little demonstrations that you start the day with. Just don't tell them the answer exactly of how it's going or what's going on and what's explaining that phenomena. A phenomena could also be just a data set. So I'm a biology teacher by trade, and I used to start with just the data set from the grants. The grants were some scientists that worked in the Galapagos, and they worked there for decades now. And what they were doing is just capturing the birds, and then they were looking at how their finch beaks changed over time. And so it's an engaging phenomena. You just start with showing them that there's been a change in their beaks over time, and then you give them the data and you just let them engage in that, put them in the position of the scientist. Not to go off on too bit of a little bend here, but I did this with a lesson just a few weeks ago when we were looking at Mendel's data. So in genetics, I just gave the students Mendel's data to show them what's happening and how in the crosses he was doing, he was getting these different ratios of different pea plants, and the kids totally engaged in it. But if I would have told them the answer, they wouldn't have engaged in it. So let me get back to this viral simulation. So this is an idea that I did in my classroom, but I thought it could be something that you could use online. It would map across. And so some of the software that I'm showing is going to be a little out of date. So I was using Google Docs. I was also using Moodle. And so this is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a learning management system. If I were to run this viral simulation today, I would do it the exact same way. I would probably use Google Classroom as a way to do that. And then I'm a child of the 80s. And so I had some Dungeons and Dragons dice that I was using. And so the students were just engaging in class. The way I taught my class was kind of blended learning. So we had things that they were doing online and then things that we were doing in the class. And so during the online component, I had a little avatar who was just whatever, an alter ego of me. And he infected a couple of students in my classes. And so what they got was a message through Moodle saying, you've been infected. So you've been infected by a virus. And so essentially what happens is you're given an RNA code, and then that RNA code, based on that, we're going to spread the virus or transmit the virus through the online class. And so when you're infected, so when you receive this, all these directions were in the message. And I've got a video on YouTube that details this if you want to look at it. And a lot of those are still live, so you could even still use it if you want to. Google has been around long enough. But essentially, once you've got your sequence, then you're going to roll an 8-sided dice. And as you roll the 8-sided dice, if you get a 1, then you're going to infect somebody else. So you're going to send that to another student in the class. You could choose somebody, I called it a close contact, so it's somebody who you spend time around. If you got a 2, then you spend it to 2 close contacts, and if it's 3, to 3 close contacts. So this is that R naught value that you're doing. If you got a 4 or a 5, then it fails to replicate. You don't infect anybody else. And then if you got a 6, a 7, or an 8, then you're going to send it to a close contact, but you're going to have a mutation. So there's going to be a change in the structure or the genomic structure. To determine what that mutation was, you would then roll a 20-sided dice. That 20-sided dice is going to tell you, of the 20 letters that are found within the sequence, which ones are going to mutate. If you had like, I think we had, since the triplet code, if it was a 19 or 20, then you just rolled it again. And then I had a 4-sided dice. So when you got that, then it would tell you what that mutation is going to change it to. So it might change to the same letter that it was before. And so this was the sample to start with. So it looks like we're looking at an RNA virus here, was the original strand. After 1.5 hours, these were the different varieties that I had. And you can see that it was mostly that original virus, but we had a couple of 2 mutations. We had 2 mutations. Then we started to get more mutations going on. Then we had this at 4.5 hours, and you can see more mutations taking place. So each of these on here represents a message that a student sent to another student in the class. And so this is passing the same way that a virus is passing through a community. And then this would be 6 hours in, and you can see all the mutations that are going in. And this would be at the whole end. And so you start to see, it's not a real virus spread, but you start to see during the simulation how a virus actually spreads. Some interesting things is that you would say right here, this is going to be that original gene sequence that was sent out. So it represents around 12% of the population. But this would be a strand, it looks like it's almost 8%, but it's got 3-point mutations in it, but it just spread. So you could use this as just an engaging way to really simulate what's going on with the COVID-19 virus as it's spreading around. But also this would be a really cool way to look at the evolution of viruses and how viruses are replicating, but also mutating and changing over time. And this is how we can track the disease and figuring out, like, if you have this sickness here, is it the same version of that? And so we can try to start to figure out as far as how is that COVID is spreading over time. And so those are kind of 4 ideas that I wanted to give you today. One is that ink float, something that you could do in the classroom. The other 2 are giving them a phenomena, but then curating what data they're given to engage in as far as this inquiry goes. I think we want to move away from having kids just do research, because that's really not them engaging in scientific inquiry or scientific process. But if you curate what that is and you keep it somewhat secret, if you say, like, this is a lake in the South, and then give them the data, they are engaging into it in the way that a scientist would engage into that as well. And so these are those links that I wanted to put up at the end. So if you want to go look at the video on the ink float or the riparian zone or the case forest or that viral sim, those are places where you could go to do that. But I also just wanted to say a couple of thanks. Thanks to all of you for sticking around. I know, especially if you're in Europe, this is really, really late. I also wanted to thank the people at the Pocket Lab for putting this all together. It was a bummer not to meet a bunch of teachers at the NSDA, and so this has kind of helped fill that in. This is not an ad for Pocket Lab, but everywhere I travel, I have my Pocket Lab Voyager and my Pocket Lab Air that are in my backpack at all times. And it's a really, you can just put the Pocket Lab Air out and look at carbon dioxide levels or air quality, and that becomes your phenomena. And then I also, when I was aiming this talk today, I was trying to aim it for, I don't know, upper elementary, middle, and high school, because I thought that might be the teachers who are here. But I did want to share what my big passion is right now. So I was a science teacher, middle and high school, for my whole career. But now, over the last 6 years, I've been working with schools K-12 as they engage in the NGSS and try to make that transition. And so my new passion is elementary science. And so I'm not working right now. I'm a consultant and I work with schools, and every school is canceled. So like my work is canceled from now way into the fall. And so what I'm just working at here at home with my wife, and my daughter is going to be a teacher as well, is just trying to create elementary science material. And so if you go to the Wonder of Science, we have graphic organizers for all of the standards in elementary from K through 5. I'm writing performance assessments for all of the standards K through 5. So if you are an elementary science teacher, like I really think the Wonder of Science is a resource that you would find valuable. And if you know other elementary science teachers who are out there, any way that you could spread the word to them, I feel like science is such a great leveler in society. Kids can come to math and they can come to reading. And a lot of how well they do in school is based on, did your parents read to you? Did your parents give you a lot of exposure, socioeconomic status? But science is just simply not being done in elementary schools, and it could be a really good leveler. And so I just wanted to put that plea out there. Anything that you can do to help out elementary teachers in your district or send them my way, I would love that. And I know I'm about out of time, so I think I'm gonna, I don't know how this works, but I think I will probably, I guess, stop the share. And then Dave, if you had questions that you wanted to serve me, I'd love to answer those.
Yeah, hi, Paul. Paul, that was fantastic. That was so interesting. I can't even tell you what part of it was the most interesting. I liked everything. It was just, this is great. You had
you like the Pocket Lab part probably when I talked about that, I would imagine.
Well, I'm not allowed, I didn't want to say that, but I think the DNA example was really interesting.
I just think teachers are so creative, and when given autonomy and given challenges, and it's the thing I miss about being in the classroom, being a consultant, is you can't fake it. You have to be ready tomorrow. And if you're not ready tomorrow, then you have to be ready the next day. And so like challenges like this, I know there's tons of teachers out there who are coming up with great ideas. And so I hope today was a good way to just kind of start sharing some of those ideas.
Yeah, that's great. We get most of our ideas from teachers, honestly. We come up with this much, and then the teachers come up with, 10 times that, 100 times that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are not in education don't understand how education works. Like there are researchers out there are companies out there, but even those companies, like all the work in education is done by hardworking teachers, because that's just the nature of it. They're the ones who have the students. That's where the kids are. And so that's where that work has to go.
It's like where the rubber meets the road, basically.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's some great questions here. One of them was the color coding, the blue, green, and orange. What do those colors represent?
Yeah, so when they came out with the NGSS, and again, I'll talk through the lens of the NGSS, but there's tons of other standards out there. What they screwed up in math and what they screwed up in English language arts, if I'm talking about the Common Core, is that in mathematics, there's ways that you do math called the mathematical practices, but when they wrote the standards, they didn't embed those into the standard itself. So a lot of math teachers are teaching math just the old way we had it without the mathematical practices. So when they wrote the NGSS, they said these 3 dimensions, if I were to hold this up again, the 3 dimensions of the content that we learn, that will always be orange. Those are called the phenomena that we're going to understand. The practices, which are blue, that's going to be what the students are going to do. So the students are maybe going to ask questions or develop models. And then the green, which are the cross-cutting concepts, all of those are embedded together in the standard itself. So for you to really hit the standard, the students have to not only know something, that would be orange, they not have to know that, they have to do what's in the blue, those are called the practices, and they have to think in the green. And so it was color coded in the documents, but if you've ever looked at the NGSS documents, like they're really confusing because all 3 of them come together. And so what I've done over the last 5 years is tried to make simplified versions of that. So these are like the blue cards, this is what you do, or these are the green cards, this is how you think. And a lot of those, just all of that is just kind of curated on the Wonder of Science, but they are just the 3 dimensions of what a true scientist does. I was a scientist for a little while, and it's really, you're learning science. But I think the thing I didn't understand about science and being a scientist is that a scientist is not just somebody who knows a bunch of science. They're able to ask questions that nobody's ever asked before and answer those questions. And so when we came up with these new standards, we tried to have what we're doing really reflect what scientists are actually doing. And so, yeah, for me, it's just, I think, yeah, try to make it, design it as simple as we can, and colors is a good way for our brain to engage in those three different areas. Other things.
That's a great answer. I feel like I should have known that, you know, and I look at the NGSS site all the time because we're always aligning things, and I didn't know. I looked over to Cliff. Cliff knew, so I'm a little embarrassed.
No, yeah. And I think it's always like when you do something like this, you have to realize that the audience who's watching this, like today, like a bunch of us live in this world of NGSS, but a bunch of people are just starting. I'm getting a bunch of emails from parents because a lot of teachers are sharing the videos with parents so the kids can do this at home. And I realize when I'm talking to a parent or somebody who's just getting started, like we have to make this as simple as we can. And so a lot of my work is just that. One thing, if you are, Dave, if I've piqued your interest in any way, I've made about 55 videos on each of the elements of the NGSS. So if you're ever interested, that'd be food to watch.
I'm going through your videos. I think they're all really entertaining. It's like your talk. There's like some hook to each one of them that are like really interesting. You do a good job of it.
No, so it's interesting how powerful, and NGSS is like, I go all around the world, and it is really an amazing set of standards and an amazing document. It is being like translated in lots of different languages and used elsewhere. So it's nice to see the way we should actually do science really reflected in the standards themselves.
So there was a lot of questions about getting links to your videos in the presentation. I know you put up a slide.
Right.
But what I'll do is I'm going to follow up with you an email, and I want to get those links, and we're going to send those out in the follow-up email so people have that information.
Also, like, feel free on the website, The Wonder of Science and Bozeman Science, you can contact me through there, and it sends me an email. So if you have specific questions out there, like, send those my way. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook, and so I just kind of wanted to have somebody put it in the chat. So if you're looking for those, somebody type it in. Yeah. The internet, so smart you are.
Yeah.
Other questions, Dave?
I did have one other. I had a little bit of an abstract question for you. You piqued my mind when you said, you know, the objective is not for the students to go off and Google the answer.
Right.
But you know, Google is a resource and is a tool, and you know, sometimes can help you. How do you draw that line? Where do you put that line in terms of that?
Yeah. So I don't know, like at looking some of the videos, the one where there's a forest just sinking. So this is a forest that's sinking in Louisiana, not to kill the wonder and tell you the right answer, but it's, they pump water down into these huge salt domes. They dissolve the salt, and then they pump in natural gas and oil to store it there. And so there was a fault, and that whole thing folds in on itself there. So like me telling it to you, you don't care about it anymore. Like, you know the answer to it. And so like, if you were trying to figure that out on the website, I've got a bunch of, anytime a kid says, maybe it's earthquakes or the soil, or like maybe they're drilling next to it, I just present them with that data to answer that question. But I don't let them Google what happened to this sinkhole in Cornet Bayou in Louisiana. And I think like that means you have to have explicit conversations with your kids and say, like, there are certain things that you can look up and certain things that I don't want you to look up, and they'll still look it up. And so you have to show them like the carrot and the stick. And the carrot is, if you don't look it up, you're going to be a scientist, and we're going to engage in phenomena, and it's going to be really, really fun. But the stick, I mean, what you have to tell them the stick is that at the summative, when you take that summative assessment at the end, there's going to be a phenomena that you've never seen before, and a data set that you've never seen before. And if you've just looked up answers along the whole way, you've never learned how to develop a proper investigation or an argument, and you're going to be sunk then. And so I think that, I think that is the one thing I found is you just have to be explicit. Tell kids, like, this is cheating. This is not cheating. This is me. Like, ask me, would this be important to be able to Google this or not? I don't know. I don't think that's an abstract question at all. I think it's like the most important question. Be honest with your kids and tell them what you expect.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, when you're describing it, I'm almost thinking it's like a magic trick.
Uh-huh.
Once you know how it's done, it's like it's really ruined.
You don't care anymore.
You don't care anymore. Yeah, you don't. The magic is gone basically,
Right.
and you kind of feel cheated.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, what magic tricks do is the same thing, but a magician has to like show you a magic trick and then show you another one and show you another one and show you another one, but you never get to spend like 10 minutes. Let me look at this magic trick and let me test it. What model do I have? What experiments could I do with this magic trick? You never get a sense of closure with a magic trick. But if you engage in this three-dimensional instruction and you gather the evidence itself, like you really are doing what a scientist is doing.
I think that's a great way to look at it. I didn't see any other questions. The key things were, but you have a lot of fans here that I could see there's gonna be a lot of people going to your content, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I've got, I see in here that there is, the slides that I made right here on the Wonder of Science, I have a place where I'll put the slide deck there. So if they want to look at those, I saw questions here about higher ed and how you would focus on that. I think in higher ed, there's a movement towards this as well. It's called active learning versus, you won't hear it called inquiry, but that same movement is going all the way through education. I'm sure I'm running over on time.
No, we're good. We have a few minutes. We're
Okay.
doing fine. Next presentation is at 5, and I see Darren is queued up, so we're good. There are a lot of people asking for slides. This has happened throughout the day.
Okay.
And if you're okay with sharing them, we're going
For sure.
to send a link to them. We can't send everybody's slides just because of the side, but if they're
No. Yeah, I'll put them as a PDF on the website so they can go there. Yep.
That'll be perfect. Well, Paul, this is
could I answer the last question?
Yes, that's a good one.
The last question is, I have a different kind of a business model, and this business model is like schools pay to have me come and work with their schools and work with their teachers to really develop true inquiry in their schools. That is an incredibly privileged position. And so like, I get paid to do that. And so my wife and I believe that it's on us to make everything we make freely available online. And so that's my revenue model. I'm not selling anything here today. Everything's free. But I think for those of us who have a privilege to be able to do work like this, it's on us to like share as much of that as we can for free. That's just how I roll, but it's lucky. I'm in a privileged position where I'm getting paid to do my work. And so everything will always be free.
Paul, that is great. I think that's music to the ears of teachers, because it's, budgets are so difficult, and having free work, especially at the quality level you put out, is, right. Everything that's free is not almost not worth it.
No, I've been to literally some of the highest rated schools in America and some of the lowest rated schools in America and all around the world. And the one thing I would say that I found is you find really spectacular and horrible teachers everywhere and students, but it's a really good metric of socioeconomic status. There are so many people who simply don't have the resources out there. And so anything we can do to help them, I think is, yeah.
There was a comment earlier. I just did want to point out, we can search the chat and see who made it, but somebody made an offer to translate some of your materials to Spanish.
Yeah, a bunch of those, you can do it through YouTube. So the YouTube has a community page and tons of people do that. So just go to YouTube and then you sign up and then we just approve it. So yeah, I've got about 600 videos, but almost all of those have been translated to Spanish already. And I have a group who put these cards in Spanish as well. But if anybody sees something that they would love to translate, right now I'm working on sign language stuff right now. So any way that you can help me, I think that'd be great.